Well, hey, I am thrilled to be here. Thank you very much for coming. I love educators. And I feel like so much of our nation has moved off of its moorings largely through the indoctrinations happening in our schools. What I want to do in this brief time that I have with you is give you just a quick little snapshot of one of our education training seminars. I spend my time traveling around the country doing full-day professional development for educators in schools, mostly public schools, but also Christian and private schools, helping to educate educators on how we can best equip our young people. And I want to go over something called the Success Sequence Program. And then on your way out, we've got free sample copies that you can take. I'm not selling anything today, but I do want you to get a free sample copy today for you to take over and look at. You can use it in a homeschool, in a church, you can use it in a public school. It's a tremendous resource because we're solutions oriented. Look, I could spend all of our time here talking about the problems, but I think you're here because you're aware of the problems. Let's talk about solutions. So what I want to do is just paint a little bit of a picture. I'm going to give you just kind of an intro to our full day training seminar so you can get a sense of that. And then there's also a QR code where you can get more information in the sheets that are in the books, because I would love to come to your school district, to your church, and help equip your parents and educators in teaching these things. All right, so the Success Sequence is simply, the Success Sequence program is designed to communicate to youth that reserving all sexual activity for marriage is the best pathway to future success. I started off doing counseling with families in pastoral ministry, and I kept seeing things like teen pregnancy and abortion, cohabitation, divorce, family breakdown, and all of these issues had a common thread, and the common thread was sexual activity outside the context of marriage. I remember one time when a single mom brought her 16-year-old pregnant girl to see me, and 16-year-old pregnant girl was going to have an abortion. Mom says, let's go see Mr. Phelps first. So there they are in my office, and I am talking to this pregnant 16-year-old girl who wants to have an abortion. I said, would you be willing to consider adoption? I know some friends of mine who are trying to adopt. I don't know if you know, but it's not easy to adopt a baby today. Get in line, literally. And they had been in line for years, waiting. I asked her if she would be willing to consider carrying the baby to term and letting this family do an open adoption. She agreed, and it was a wonderful situation. However, a year later, that same girl, now 17 years old, was back in my office, pregnant again, and off to the abortion clinic she went. And I remember thinking to myself, is the best I can do is to sit here and wait for the problems to come to me? Or wouldn't it be better if I could get out and go help young people not get their lives all tangled up in a knot in the first place? And so what the Success Sequence is all about is helping young people understand a pathway forward. And sexual activity today is one of the things that derails young people from their path. So today, teens are exposed to about 9 hours of media per day, according to researchers. I think it's more like 25 hours per day that our kids are. And it's not just the kids. We're all there, right? We've all got the phones in our face all the time. And the question I want to ask you is, are there any sexual messages or images in the media that our kids are seeing? Of course, it's a rhetorical question, but here's the next question I want to ask you. How much of all the sex that our kids are exposed to on a regular basis communicate to them the beauty and the value of sex in the context of a marriage relationship? See, it's not just that our kids are being sexualized and they're seeing sex and on their phones and on the TV and on the computer. It's not just that they're seeing sex, is that there's no connection with sex and marriage whatsoever. The idea that sex should be reserved for marriage is a foreign concept to our young people. And if we're in the church or if we're homes, we can't expect that our kids know these things. We have to be diligent in teaching it to them. That's what the Success Sequence program is all about. It's helping our young people understand, not that sex is a bad thing, but that reserved for the context of marriage is going to benefit you. We believe that marriage is the cornerstone of culture. And if we're going to restore marriage and family in our culture, it begins with educating our kids properly. And what we have to help them do is make sense of all the crazy that's out there and understand, again, not that sex is bad, but why waiting until marriage and reserving sexual activity for the context of marriage and how to form a healthy marriage and family, we think that's critical. So now we're talking about what is the content that we're going to provide to our young people. Look, it's not enough to not do the crazy, okay? All of the crazy with the it's not just sex education now starting in kindergarten, it's what I call sexual deviancy education starting in kindergarten. It's not just avoiding that, but now what proactively are we going to do to educate them and to help them and equip them understand the clear and objective benefits of marriage and why waiting for marriage matters. Now, here's one solution to the problem of teen pregnancy. You could do what this Portland school district did, Portland, Maine school district did. You could say, you know what we'll do? We'll just get all of our sixth graders on birth control. That'll solve our problems. If you're putting sixth graders on birth control, have you solved the problem or have you created a problem? We think there's a much better way. And what we said at the time here was, if you've got sixth grade girls getting pregnant, maybe you should be figuring out who's getting them pregnant, because chances are it's not sixth grade boys, if you know what I mean. And the idea that you're going to give them some pill and pat yourself on the back like you've done something fabulous is a delusion. We think there's a better way. So we have the Success Sequence program, and these are the programs here, the 4 grade levels that we have. You can run it 6, 7, 8, 9. You can go 9, 10, 11, 12. However you want to do it, we want these kids to have the opportunity to learn the things that we're going to teach them through the Success Sequence. And we have to have an alternative for our kids. These are Success Sequence programs that have been used or are being used around the country. 2 million kids. Now let's talk about this. What is the big issue here? What are we concerned about with our kids today? If I'm concerned about our young people, which of these things am I going to go after? Am I going to be concerned with the teen pregnancy, the teen STDs, the teen sexual activity, the breakdown? If I could pick one of these things to identify as the main issue that I need to be attacking in my education to my young people, which of these am I going to go after? Clearly, it's breakdown of marriage and family, because teen pregnancy, teen STDs, teen sexual activity, we're concerned about those, but those tend to be symptoms of the... Look, I don't want to spend my time chasing symptoms. I want to get to the cause. I want to get to the problem. And when we can help our young people understand family formation, we're going to have those symptoms taken care of largely by dealing with the main issue. Glenn Stanton, in his excellent book called Why Marriage Matters, Focus on the Family, he wrote this book, Why Marriage Matters, says, of all the social problems facing American civilization, the decline of marriage and the breakup of the family is unquestionably our most pressing problem. Its impact is widespread and comprehensively destructive. He goes on to say in this book, its impact is widespread and comprehensively destructive, as this book will illustrate in great detail. It is the common denominator driving other social ills, but it is also the one social problem that touches our lives most directly. Think about the children living in your neighborhood. What social pathology touches these young lives more directly than the fact that their mothers are no longer or never were married to their fathers? Where you have breakdown of marriage and family, you have a host of pathologies then that you have to address. Maggie Gallagher, in her book, The Case for Marriage, says it this way: when men and women fail to form stable marriages, the first result is a vast expansion of government attempts to cope with the terrible social needs that result. Scarcely a dollar the state and federal government spends on social programs that is not driven in large part by family fragmentation, crime, poverty, drug abuse, teen pregnancy, school failure, mental and physical health problems. What she's saying is where you have family fragmentation, either broken families or never formed families, is where you have the pathologies. And the government funding is largely a mopping up operation for the broken family. Look, we're talking about Turning Point USA, and I love Turning Point, and I love Turning Point Academy, and I'm thrilled to be here and to be a part of this. But if we're going to turn things around in this country, it's got to begin with rebuilding the American family. And if we're going to rebuild the American family, we've got to reach our kids with a clear and compelling message on what marriage is and why marriage matters. And so how do we do that? And that's what the Success Sequence program is all about, is helping our young people understand and appreciate what marriage and family is and how I can prepare well for it. Now let's look at this. Where are the highest rates of birth outside of marriage today? We're going to do a little we can have a little fun here at TPA, okay? So don't wait until you have the answer and be like, oh yeah, I knew that. No, you didn't. Raise your hand. Where is the highest rate of birth outside of marriage in America today? Is it 35 to 40? Let me see a show of hands. 35 to 40, no? How about 30 to 40? 30 to 34? 25 to 30? Couple? 20 to 24. How about 15 to 19? All right, let's take a look. And the answer is non-marital births by age, highest rates of birth outside of marriage in America today, 20 to 25 to 30. Surprising? What's number two? What's number two? What's number three? Now this one's tough. What's number four? Anybody know what number five is? Now look, the reason I do this little dog and pony show is because it's not what we expect. And so here is the data from the National Center for Vital Statistics showing what we just said, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And look at 4, how much, or number 5, 15 to 19, how much lower that is than everything else. And then if you compare, now look, when I talk about teen pregnancy, does your brain go college-age girls or high school-age girls? We always think high school-age girls, but 15 to 19 includes college. Look, if we zoom in on 15 to 19, what are we going to get? 2/3 of teen pregnancies are actually college-age girls. And now if you want to compare the high school age group with adults 18 and above, look at what you get. 95% of non-marital births occur among adults 18 and above. It's not the high schoolers. Now, this is important because we're talking about what are our kids learning. Now, by the way, how are we doing with teen pregnancy today? Are teen pregnancy rates going up, going down, staying the same? Where are we at? How are we doing with teen pregnancy? Teen pregnancies in the United States are at all-time recorded lows. Teen pregnancies, births, and abortions are all at all-time recorded lows. Look at these dramatic declines over the past several decades. These are dramatic declines. Of course, you've never heard this. I wouldn't know this if I didn't do this for a living. What was the last article you read about this? And so it's important for us to understand what the issues are and what the issues aren't. Now, why are the pregnancy, births, and abortions declining? Well, one is, you saw on the slide with the birth control pills, our schools, our public school systems have become sort of contraceptive dispensaries, and we've done a really good job of getting our kids on birth control. I was doing a training seminar in central Illinois a few years ago, and teachers raised her hand. She said, Scott, by the way, 3/4 of my girls are on LARC. They've got the patch or the bars, they've got the shot. 3/4 of my girls have the shot in their arm. Our schools are dispensing contraceptions. Are we solving problems or creating problems for our young people? We think there's a better way. Yes, it's led to a decrease in teen pregnancies. What's happened to STDs, by the way, sexually transmitted diseases during this time? Through the roof. Every year, new all-time highs, year after year after year. Because contraceptive isn't disease prevention. And so this is what it's important for us to understand. One reason is contraception, but another reason is that sexual activity is actually declining among teens. Look, only about 1/4 of high school students are currently sexually active, according to the Centers for Disease Control. Now, this is important for you to understand because the image is they're all doing it. And the perception of teaching kids abstinence is that it's a fool's errand, that they're all doing it, and the best you can do is throw contraception at them because you're not going to get them to stop. The image of teaching kids about abstinence until marriage typically is, what you're going to do in teaching abstinence is you're going to stand in the front of the class. It's like standing in front of a bus. You're going to stand in front of the class and say, stop it, stop it, stop it. No, stop with the sex. It's not that. They're already, most kids, not sexually active. What we need to be doing is encouraging them to understand why waiting not until you're older, not until you're in love, not until you're in a mature relationship, but waiting until you're married, why that matters. And we have to be clear about that. Now, this, I think, is the most important graph that I want to communicate to you. Because what happened in the 1960s and 70s, in 2019, we just had the 50th anniversary of Woodstock. What was Woodstock? Sex and drugs and rock and roll. It was the sexual revolution. What was the sexual revolution? The sexual revolution said, you don't need to be married. You can smoke dope and have sex with a whole bunch of people. It'd be fabulous. That was the sexual revolution. And we are now seeing the results of the sexual revolution. Now, that's not me speaking, that's the smart people. That's Brad Wilcox of the University of Virginia says this. Listen to this. Over the last 40 years, more children have been born and reared outside of a married home, at least in part because the sexual revolution undercut the norm of premarital sexual abstinence. Most scholars who have studied the nation's recent retreat from marriage over the last 4 decades agree that the sexual revolution played an important role in fueling this retreat. Now, watch who he quotes here. He's going to quote Dr. George Akerlof, a Nobel Prize-winning economist at the University of California, Berkeley, married to Janet Yellen, by the way, Treasury Secretary. So George Akerlof, Nobel Prize-winning economist, UC Berkeley, argues that the sexual revolution, aided in part by widespread contraception, fueled a dramatic increase in premarital sex and reduced the normative imperative that men should take responsibility for the children they help bring into the world by marrying, and that these two developments led to dramatic increases in non-marital childbearing. Here's George Akerlof, UC Berkeley, saying the sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s, where you detach sex from marriage, has led to dramatic increases in non-marital childbearing, as well as sexually transmitted disease, and he will go on to say a whole host of social pathologies. So much of what we see in our culture is the result of the breakdown of marriage and family. And what is sex education in the American classroom? But the sex education today is a codification of the sexual revolution. If you go to the typical high school in America, sex education is the codified sexual revolution. It is, here's all the different birth control that you could use, and there's no mention of marriage. Many people are unaware that Planned Parenthood is not only the largest provider of abortions in America, they are the largest provider of sex education programs in your schools. And so what we have to do is we have to educate our young people properly about sex, marriage, and family. How do we do that? That's what we're talking about. All right. You can see that in this, if I go back to this one, it's soon, what this graph shows, 40%, is that soon most American children will be born outside the context of a marriage relationship. That's already the case in the Hispanic community and the Black community. We believe that all young people, regardless of their ethnicity, should have the opportunity to learn about the benefits of marriage and family. We would argue that so many of the economic disparities in our culture are less related to ethnicity than they are to family structure. So what we need to do is strengthen families, because that's where you're going to see the difference. And this graph is really, really telling. Now, when I was piloting my Quest program in an all-black school on the south side of Chicago, the challenge, of course, that I'm going to face is I know this. I know statistically most of the young people in my classroom do not come from an intact married family home. I know that. So how am I going to talk to them about why it's really good to have a mom and a dad and that they're married? And again, why this? How am I going to teach these kids about the value of marriage and family? My sense is that if I try to say something about that, I'm going to offend them. I'm going to hurt their feelings. And so my tendency is, don't say it. Don't say it. You'll offend. And as soon as I realize that I'm not going to say it, am I helping them or hurting them by withholding that information? I absolutely believe I'm hurting them. So what I have to do is I have to push through my sensitivity and clearly communicate to these young people why marriage and family is good and worth striving for. And when I do that, when I push through that sensitivity, how do you suppose they respond to that? Oh my goodness, where have you been all my life? Could you say more about that? Because we never get to learn about this. And they eat it up. They eat it up big time. And it's not just what I'm saying, but it's how I'm saying it. So when I'm talking to these kids, I say it like this. Now listen, kids, when I say this. When I say it's best to have a married mom and dad, and it's great. Am I saying that a single mom, a single dad, a single parent, am I saying a single mom can't be a great mom? Am I saying that? No, you're not. Of course not. Listen to me. Most single moms are heroes. They're working really hard. And if you live now with the single mom, help out her on that. Your mom's working really hard to take care of you. She works all day. She comes home. She cooks. She cleans. Help out around the house. Take out the garbage. So that's how I talk to kids. But I just educate them. Don't withhold it. Teach it, but teach it well. And that's what I want to help your educators do as well. Look at this, ages 20 to 24. Most American children today in the 20 to parents in the 20 to 24 group born outside the context of marriage. All of this has implications for our society, for our culture. I actually got this, Erwin, from your book, We Will Not Be Silenced. You quoted Barack Obama's Father's Day speech. I went and looked it up. This is fabulous. Take a look. Isn't this true? It's true. So the success sequence exists to ensure that every teenager in the country has the opportunity to hear a clearly reasoned, positive presentation of the benefits of absence until marriage and instruction on preparing for a healthy future marriage. Listen, we just think every kid in the country should have the opportunity to learn a clear pathway forward for life, that reserving sexual activity for marriage can help them and benefit them in preparing a solid marriage for a solid marriage and family. Now listen, you don't have to do it, but you should get to learn about it. And that's the way we do our presentations. I'm not telling you what to do. You do whatever you want. But listen, there's a clear pathway forward for you called the success sequence. And if you follow this sequence of events, what the researchers call the success sequence is three things. Get an education, get a job, and then get married before having children. If you do those three things, it's almost impossible for you to end up in poverty. This was Mike Lee's committee, it looks like. This is a couple of years ago, 2020, U.S. marriage rates hit a recorded low. Let me zoom in on this. Look at this. This is just the last. I was married. My lovely wife is back here somewhere. My lovely wife and I were married in 1984, which is right about the peak of this graph. And look at what has happened on our watch. This has happened on our watch. What are we doing to help our young people understand what marriage is and why marriage matters? This is my favorite graph out of the University of Michigan. When you get to what the kids are actually looking for, look at this. Percent saying that having a good marriage and family life is quite or extremely important. High school seniors, this is very thorough research, high school students around the country, seniors, I really want to get married. I really want to have a family. There's a heart's desire for that. Who is talking to them about? Answer me this. Where do kids today get any encouragement in this direction? See, teaching kids to save sex for marriage isn't about sex is bad, no, don't quit, disease. It's not that. I say kids don't need the big negative beat down. They need the positive, encouraging lift up. Our kids need cheerleaders. Woo! you can do this, you can do this. I want to help guide you, teach you, show you how to get there. That's what our kids need. They need guidance and encouragement toward what their heart desires. That's what we want to help them to do. So we're here to help. We've got workbooks and online learning available for you. We do training, live training, online training, parent orientation meetings, free videos, activity demos, educator professional development. This is our website, successsequence.com. All 4 of our Success Sequence program books are available as online learning courses where me and my staff do little 2 to 3 minute videos all along through the program, so we guide your students through it. Or you can do it yourself with the workbook. Do I have time for FAQs? I don't think so. Maybe I'll come back to that. So book 1 is the game plan program. We did that with, it was the first workbook I wrote with A.C. Green from the NBA. Actually, he was living in Phoenix at the time that I wrote this years ago. I think he played for the Suns and then the Miami Heat and the LA Lakers. And we wrote this book called A.C. Green's Game Plan. And then we've got the Quest book. Game Plan and Quest are more for middle school age kids, and then Aspire and Navigator are more for our high school age kids, although it's not critical. You can mix those around. And then we have the Excel program, which is exclusively for churches and Christian schools. So if you're here today with a church group or you have a Christian school, we have our Excel program, which is going to follow the Joseph narrative in Genesis 37 through 50. Potiphar's wife comes on to Joseph. Come on, Joseph, lie with me. And I love what Joseph doesn't say. Joseph doesn't say, oh, you might get pregnant. I might get an STD. You're somebody else's wife. He understood that sex belongs in the context of a marriage. That's what we have to teach our kids. Not bad things can happen to you, but God designed it such that it's for the context of a marriage relationship. And Joseph knew that and said it would be a great evil to violate God's design. So that's our Excel program. So today on your way out, please take a sample copy. There's a QR, just do me this favor. There's a QR code on there. Would you just punch on that and give us your info so we know that you got that? We can do a little follow-up with you. But I would love to come to your community, come to your school, come to your church, and help your parents and your educators teach these things to your kids, and that's what we want to do. So it's been great being here. Thank you. I'll be around. I'm not going to miss Erwin Lutzer tomorrow and Wayne Grudem and Eric Metaxa, so I'll be hanging around, so feel free to visit and check out our booth and our materials. Hutz, thank you. I love what you're doing at TPA, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. God bless you.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott. Scott Phelps.